big pack. You come on, Georgia. Again, I got on for Party Pregame. You see the monologue and arguing. I'm like, back with the snap.
Close it for the end zone for way up. Oh, yeah! Touchdown, Auburn! Just done it! Just done it! If your blood runs red and black, get on your feet. And let's make some Sanford Stadium noise for head coach Kirby Smart and the 2018 SEC East Division champions.
And welcome on into the Patrick Party Pregame Show. We're so excited you're here with us on this exciting Saturday morning as we get ready for the 127th edition of the Auburn, Georgia football rivalry known as the Deep South's oldest rivalry. Should be a lot of fun let's hope it's a lot of fun for the Auburn Football Tigers up in Athens today. We have a big show planned. We're super duper excited to talk about Auburn, Georgia. But first, I just wanted to take a look back and look at some of my old Patrick parties. We've been covering Auburn, Georgia for quite some time. And so we're going to go back, we're going to take a look, and we're going to see all the old Patrick parties as we've covered the Deep South's oldest rivalry.
We have the game here on Pat Dye Field, Auburn versus Georgia. Close game. I do think Auburn will pull it out in the end, but it's going to be a really close one, possibly even an overtime game. Thanks for tuning in to the Patrick Party. We'll see you back next week again to the playoff. And then, of course, the game here, Auburn, Georgia. A rematch of the Deep South's oldest rivalry where Auburn dominated the first game. I think the Tigers will get the victory, but Kerryon Johnson's health could be a very big factor in today's game. Thanks for watching the Patrick Party. And then Auburn plays Georgia here in Athens. I think the Auburn Tigers will upset the Georgia Bulldogs. That's all from the Patrick Party here in Athens, Georgia. And then the Deep South's oldest rivalry for the 125th time. For the first time in 80-plus years, it is this early in the season. For the first time since the 30s that there's this many people in attendance at Athens. It's going to be a very different ball game. I like the Tigers in this one, of course. I really think that Georgia's offense, with all of their quarterbacks, they're not going to be able to put it together until later in the season. I like Bo Nix and the Chad Morris offense, and I think Auburn's defense is going to have something to prove after their not great showing in the first half of last week. So I like the Tigers. That's all of us from here at Garrett Harrison Stadium here in Columbus, Georgia. Enjoy your college football weekend.
So that's kind of funny. We've also done two others. This will be our third Patrick Party pregame show building up to the Auburn-Georgia matchup. Of course, we started the pregame show in 2020, and we had a couple shows, and then remember the SEC's play started later, and Auburn played Georgia the second game of the season, which was about this time in the schedule. It was just, the season got pushed back and started on September 26th. And so we did the Auburn-Georgia game in 2020. We did it last year, 2021. And here we are in 2022, getting ready for yet another Auburn-Georgia matchup. And they've been some sad ones recently, at least for the Auburn Tigers. And, of course, Sanford Stadium has been a house of horrors for anybody that wears orange and blue in American football recently. So we'll see if Auburn can turn the tide and change things up in Athens. But we want to welcome you into our pregame show this morning. We had a lot of fun things planned, and we're super excited to, talk about the Deep South Soldiers rivalry, Auburn, Georgia. It's always a fun weekend. We mentioned it on the podcast. It's earlier than it used to be, so it still feels a little odd to already be talking about it. But nevertheless, Auburn and Georgia will play between the hedges this Saturday. We'll break down this 2022 matchup, all the implications it could have for Auburn moving forward, of course, with all the coaching drama that we've been hearing about. So let's just dive right on into the program. And we start every show, I say this every week, we start every show commemorating the 50th anniversary of the 1972 Auburn Football Tigers. We actually jumped ahead, as I said, prior to 2019 and before. Auburn, Georgia was always the second weekend in November. There was always some game start November. Then you had Auburn, Georgia, either a cupcake FCS team or no game at all, and then Alabama on Thanksgiving weekend. And so we went ahead and jumped ahead in the schedule for 1972 up to November 14th. Then we'll backtrack. They actually played Georgia Tech. If we were following the timeline, it would have been the Georgia Tech game, which I thought would have been kind of funny. But we'll go ahead and talk about it. So in 1972 on November 14th in Cliff Harris Stadium, number 8 Auburn defeats unranked Georgia 27-10. And that was a big win for Auburn. At this point in the season for Auburn had a ton of big ranked wins, and Auburn was just that was the last game prior to the Iron Bowl. There wasn't really a cupcake game back then, so it was a tough little stretch to end the season, as it always has been for Auburn. So we'll get back on schedule next week with that Georgia Tech matchup for this 1972 Auburn football team. But let's go ahead and get into our Saturday slate this Saturday morning. We start with the big game in Tiger Stadium. That's number 8 Tennessee. They've had a great start to the season against number 25 LSU. LSU gets ranked after their big win in Auburn last week. And I know the LSU fans for this big matchup. And of course, there's been some Tennessee LSU drama in Tiger Stadium before, if you remember, years ago. But I think they were upset because for such a high-ranked matchup, it's at 11 a.m. on ESPN. And I think a lot of people were surprised that CBS got the first 2 picks because it's their night doubleheader this weekend. They went with Alabama, Texas A&M, which has got less and less exciting as we've moved on. A&M has dropped a couple. They lost at Mississippi State last week. And then now Bryce Young's going to be out for Alabama. So it'll be very interesting to see just that game because there's just a lot of weird things that have happened around that matchup. That's not quite what CBS thought they might have been signing themselves up for. So that'll be at 7 o'clock tonight on CBS. Then their next pick was Auburn, Georgia at 2:30 instead of Tennessee, LSU. Interesting choice. I mean, Auburn, Georgia, more of a helmet game, more traditional CBS matchup, but Tennessee, LSU should be another fun one. It's at 11 a.m. on ESPN. That's what ESPN put up against whatever Fox has on right now. I don't think Fox has anything good. I believe it's Michigan, Indiana, and ABC has Texas, Oklahoma. So I could have just put that at night. So the LSU fans aren't that happy, but it should be a fun crowd. Tennessee's had a fantastic start to the season. Tennessee plays Alabama in about, they might play them next weekend or the weekend after. So it's about to get real for the Tennessee Volunteers as they play Alabama and Georgia coming up. But it should be a lot of fun. This should be a really good game. We'll, of course, make our pick later. Don't want to spoil anything for anybody. And then the team of the year maybe so far that everyone's been talking about. Undefeated TCU, right? Yeah, no. Number 19, Kansas has been undefeated. TCU is also undefeated. They had their statement win at home. They just blew out Oklahoma under their new head coach. Remember, we said they hadn't beat Oklahoma since 2014. They did play in that Big 12 championship game at the end of the 2017 season. And then Kansas, who has simply not been good since 2009 when they had their big year. Kansas has really come on. They're undefeated. They have college game day this morning. So this one will be at 11 a.m. And so what do you get when you have a big undefeated season and everyone's getting excited and going to the games? You get an 11 a.m. kickoff on Fox Sports 1. So congratulations. But this should be a really fun one. I mean, heck, the winner of this game really has a great shot at making it to that Big 12 championship game. And everyone likes to talk about Texas and Oklahoma. They're both playing 3-2. This is the bigger premier game of the Big 12 today. So shouts out to TCU and Kansas. This should be a fun one in Lawrence. Then we have Mississippi State, who is still unranked, and you hate that. Oh, no, my bad. My graphic's wrong. Mississippi State is ranked. Arkansas is not. Mississippi State is number 23. I think they might be the second best team in the SEC West. Mike Leach's offense has really started to click in year 3. They're looking to be pretty good. They should be a tough loss for anybody, really. Arkansas, for all the love they've gotten, they lost to Alabama. They lost to A&M, which is going to look like kind of a tough. They shouldn't have lost to A&M. So it's been a tough start to the year for Arkansas. Can they get kind of a big win on the road in Starkville and just kind of start to turn things around a little bit? After all the love, you would hope you wouldn't see this one start to slide a little bit because of the tough start to the year. But at some point, like everybody's good in the SEC West, like you're going to have to beat a good team eventually. So we'll see what will happen in Starkville. Hey, we'll be going to Starkville in a couple weeks, so that'll be fun. The trip will be fun. Next up, we have the Red River Showdown. It was the shootout, and then we decided we couldn't call it a shootout, so then we called it the rivalry for alliteration. And then everyone was like, that's not what it's called, so now it's back to Showdown. Well, now it's just Showdown. It's Oklahoma and Texas. This might be the weakest Oklahoma-Texas game we've had in a while. A lot of times, one of the teams has been down. It's mostly been Texas. But today, neither team is very good. Oklahoma's coming off 2 straight losses to Kansas State and TCU. Texas, they lost to Alabama, and then they dropped another one. And it has just not been looking good for these two programs. It'll be a big win in a rivalry game in the Cotton Bowl for one of these schools that can really kind of start to get the momentum back. It'll be interesting to see what happens to Oklahoma if they lose a 3rd straight game, just because that has been a program that hasn't been losing recently. So shouts out to them. Another undefeated matchup in the Pac-12. I was actually making some graphics, for the show and everything, and I was looking, and I go conference by conference for the bottom line, because that's how it's divided. And it was very interesting to see that the Pac-12, that gets a lot of hate, had way more good games than the ACC. They had, Utah, Oregon's playing there's a bunch of good games. So shout out to the lovely Pac-12. But this is their big undefeated matchup. I believe both these teams are in the South. So this could go a long way in determining who will make it to Las Vegas for the Pac-12 championship game. That's number 11 Utah at number 18 UCLA. Maybe UCLA could have some fans. That would be kind of cool. If you've seen any pictures of the Rose Bowl this season, there has been quite literally nobody in attendance at these football games. It's an undefeated team that, I guess if they won today, they'd clinch a bowl game. It looks like they're going to go farther than a bowl game this season. And so shouts out to UCLA. Everyone's talking, everyone was throwing the slander of, the Big 12, or not the Big 12, the Big 10 got USC and UCLA, but UCLA sucks. Like, who would ever want to go play there? They're actually having a good team. They have a good football program. Chip Kelly's been successful there. It's just they have no fans. Like, I don't understand. They have literally no fans. Show up, everybody! Come to the Rose Bowl, and let's watch it. This should be a pretty good game. So that one will be on Fox at 2:30 after that Michigan Indiana game in Indiana. Next up, we have Florida State, who suffered their first loss of the season last weekend at home to Wake Forest. They'll be traveling up to Raleigh, take on number 14 NC State, who lost to Clemson. that might have also been last weekend. So these are two teams that are 4-1. It'd be a big win for either team. Really, Florida State, after their first loss, can they just continue the good season? They had a pretty strong start to the year. There wasn't a ton of optimism. We'll just see what happens with Florida State. They've been very interesting to follow under Mike Norvell. NC State, they continue to be ranked pretty high. And, I mean, I know they only have one loss, but I just wonder how good they've been recently. But this should be a fun one as well. And then the game that everyone, okay, so I gave A&M no credit building up. Everyone was like, A&M's going to beat Alabama. A&M's going to beat Alabama. This was last year. And I was like, no, they're not. No, they're not. They're not going to beat Alabama. They're just simply not going to. Like, I don't think they're that good. Like, Jimbo gets a lot of credit. Like, no. And then they did, and I looked kind of stupid in the process. But after the fact, I mean, like, so then, because then Jimbo in the offseason, while it was all like, well, yeah, we're going to beat Alabama, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's like the last thing you do is say that. Like, no, sir. And then they did. So shout out to Texas A&M. Well, now they get to go to Bryant-Denny Stadium, and they haven't had a great start to the season. So we'll see what happens in this one. They were coming off a loss last year, and I was like, why did CBS pick this game? It wasn't good. Well, maybe it'll be good this year. It's giving, okay, here's the vibe it's giving. You know how Alabama, LSU for the longest time, until LSU finally did it, it was all like, LSU's going to be the team to take Alabama down. They're going to be the team. And then they never did for 8 straight years or something. It's giving those vibes. Now, A&M did beat them last year, so shout out to Reveille and the fam. But we'll see. I think Alabama might have something special after last season's loss in College Station. And then our Patrick Party game of the day, the 127th edition of the Deep South's oldest rivalry. That's Auburn and Georgia in Athens. The number 2 dogs, they were number 1, and they slid down after an interesting performance to Missouri. And hey, I would just like to point out, here's my key to the game. I figured this one out this week. Georgia trailed Missouri for quite some time in this ball game before they came back and won. Auburn never trailed Missouri. So I'm just saying, just wanted to throw that one out there for everybody. Auburn never trailed to Missouri, so should be just a walk in the park for Auburn, right? Yeah, wrong. So let's just dive right in. The whole second half of our show is dedicated to the Auburn game. Auburn has had a lot of problems recently. That's a very easy statement to make. But I think it starts with, there's so many places to start here. Let's talk about this rivalry specifically. Auburn had a pretty strong lead in the Deep South's oldest rivalry for quite some time. Auburn won in Athens for quite some time. And then for whatever reason, I don't know if it was voodoo, I don't know what happened. But basically since I've been born, Auburn has barely beaten Georgia. It's one of those Auburn's beaten Georgia when they've absolutely had to in 2004, 2010, 2013, 17 the first time. But after that, it has been a tough series for Auburn, which is, sad to say. But Georgia now leads the Deep South's oldest rivalry's all-time series 62-56 with 8 ties. Georgia's also currently on a 5-game winning streak, looking to make it 6 today. Dating back to that 2017 season, because remember, they played twice, which was sad because that was such a fun game, and we didn't really even get to enjoy a whole offseason of it because then they beat us in the SEC Championship tier. So, let's just go ahead and look back here. Georgia, I believe my Georgia graphic says it for me, but Georgia has won. This is dating back to the 2005 season, the last time Auburn won in Athens. Georgia is 14 out of the last 17 against Auburn. Georgia has had Auburn's number, and I think if you're an Auburn fan, the most disappointing ones are that 2015 and 2016 games, 2015 being in Auburn, 2016 being in Athens. That was the last season of Mark Richt, the first season of Kirby Smart. Neither of those Georgia teams were very good. Those are 2 wins you just should have had. And Auburn just unable to generate offense in either of them. In 2015, I believe Georgia had to return a punt to win. 2013, just no offense. And then maybe the most painful one, 2016, 13-7 Georgia. They did not score an offensive touchdown. They had a pick six and 2 field goals. Auburn had 1 touchdown. Hell, Auburn might have won this game 7-6 if Auburn had just ran the ball 3 times and punted in the second half. It was a defensive war, but Auburn just unable to get the win in Athens. So Auburn has not won there since 2005. Shout out to my sister who was born in 2005. She wouldn't have been 1 yet, and now she's 17. So that's concerning. So Auburn has not beaten Georgia. It's been very sad. We don't like this. Georgia also maybe in the golden era of their football program right now, coming off a national championship. They've gone to multiple SEC championships. I know they've won at least 1 under Kirby. And Auburn, not exactly the golden era of their football program. That goes without saying. Auburn, suffered another loss to LSU. Things are not looking too good for the coaching staff. I will say this. I'm not going to comment. I'm not going to start doing coaching speculation. Well, number one, because I don't make the rules here. They haven't called me. They have not called me to be athletic director yet. I'll still do it. I will be the athletic director at Auburn. I've said that. They just have to call me. Auburn University already has my bank account information. We're cool. I'll do it. But if I became athletic director, I also wouldn't comment on it because that would not be professional. But I'm not going to comment on it now because I don't make the decisions. They haven't called me yet. But also, we do have a head coach. So I'm not going to, talk about who the next one should be if we still have a head coach. So that's kind of my take on that one. All that to say, I think, and I said this in the podcast, but I'll say it again because I thought it was a decent line. I think I said it best on last week's Patrick Party email newsletter when I said, it was at the end of the LSU article. Remember, we recapped all these Auburn LSU games, and I was kind of setting up this upcoming one. And I said, a win for Auburn in any fashion could be the start of bringing some stability to this season and program. A loss, and the talk only gets louder, the rumors only get bigger, and the drama only gets more out of control. That has been what has happened. The talk has gotten bigger. The drama has gotten worse. Everything's kind of gotten out of control. And I think that, it almost feels like there's no way out at this point for Auburn's coaching staff, which you hate. And, that's not fun. But, there are still games to play. And I will say this, for everyone saying it's so early in the season, it's so upsetting that everyone's already just, so done with the year. This is the halfway point for Auburn. You play 12 regular season games. This is game 6. So, Auburn's either going to be 4-2 or 3-3. So, with a tough back half of the schedule still coming, Auburn only has one more non-SEC game. That's Western Kentucky. One would think unless the team just collapsed, Auburn would win that game. So that's 4. Got to win 2 more conference games to make it to a bowl game. And time will tell. Will it happen in Athens? I hope so. My pick is coming later on this one. I'm trying not to be too Debbie Downer, but at the same time, in my 6 years of the Patrick Party, I have never not picked Auburn. So we'll see if that stays. God, if that stays the whole season, something good has happened to this team. But let's just go ahead and just kind of break this one down a little bit. Let's start off with this Georgia offense for a second. Georgia, a very strong start to the season. I think the statement they made against Oregon in week 1 in Atlanta and Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I know it's a neutral site game, but it might as well have been a home game for the Dogs. They win 49-3 against, former Auburn quarterback Bo Nix and former Georgia defensive coordinator Dan Lanning, new head coach of Oregon. They win 49-3 to start off the season, defending national champions. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, they look so good. Their defense was so good. Their offense, 49 points. They might be better than last year." Everybody really freaked out. And then they beat Stanford 33-0. Not surprising at all. And everyone was like, here we go again. South Carolina 48-7. Everything, it was rolling. And not to say, and here's the nice thing about Georgia, and I said this somewhere else too. It's fun when you can criticize wins. Auburn is not at the point right now where you can be like, that just wasn't a good enough win. No, like we'll take the win however we can get it. And I mean, I think at some point everyone will, but it's nice for Georgia to be like, this wasn't a good enough win for us. Like, what a position to be in. It kind of all started in Kent State. Georgia had not turned the ball over. Oregon, Stanford, or South Carolina games. They turned the ball over twice in the first half against Kent State. They turned the ball over twice in the first half at Missouri. They were able to win both those games. Kent State 39-22. Missouri, they came from behind. They were down, I believe, 13-0 at one point. Auburn never trailed to Missouri. Just throw that one out again. That's like our only thing we can say. They ended up beating Missouri and Columbia 26-22. Now, I will say this. I mean, if Missouri had a functional field goal kicker the day they played Auburn, like the day they played Georgia, Missouri probably would have won. But that goes without saying. No need to say that. But Georgia, their offense had been dynamite. They've had some injuries at wide receiver. Stetson's really only like reliable third down target. If Auburn can get it to third down, has been their tight ends. I think a big thing in this one is going to be the run game. And it always comes down to this, and someone pointed this stat out, and I said it to my dad. Auburn has not run for more than 150 yards in Athens since 2005, which is the last year they won. I think it's worth pointing out that the 150 is typically Auburn's magic number. If Auburn can run the ball for 150 yards, rarely does Auburn lose. Auburn has not ran the ball for 150 yards in some time. That's just I think the ground game is going to be a big one in this matchup. Stetson's obviously a fantastic quarterback. Auburn threw the ball for a ton of yards, over 300 yards last weekend. I just think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the run game. And I mean, as advanced and how exciting all these offenses can be, I mean, this is going to be a little bit more of an old-fashioned football, just the way these two offenses run. It's not going to be throw it all over the field. I mean, there'll be some modern things, but like at the end of the day, it's the ground game is how people are going to win this matchup. Specifically, if you looked at that Auburn LSU game, it was very concerning how easily, and really not even just LSU, anybody has been able to run on Auburn. I mean, even the game-winning play against Missouri, if the guy steps out of bounds, that's like a 29-yard run on the first play or second play. So the ground game has been concerning. I feel like that's only going to get harder with Eku Leota, Auburn's star edge rusher, out for the season. They say they're going to probably move Colby Wooden over a little bit. But the edge, while Auburn had some elite talent with Derek Hall and Eku, there wasn't a lot of depth, and that was the problem. And that's been something that's been a problem for Auburn just all season. The whole roster has been there's not a lot of depth, except for whatever reason at quarterback. But now we're on to our third and fourth or second and fourth string quarterback. So I don't know there. It doesn't sound like, we'll just talk about this for a second. It doesn't sound like TJ Finley will be playing today. I don't really know why he would. Not to like hate on TJ or anything, but more just Auburn's offense was able to move the ball against LSU. Like, we were getting yards. It wasn't Missouri, it was like a bunch of 3-and-outs and punting the ball, and I'm just standing there with my cables on the sideline like, oh my God, this is so boring. Like, what is happening here? It was 8 straight punts. Auburn was able to effectively move the balls. It felt like every drive Auburn had an explosive play. The key is the execution, and I think that's something that I keep coming back to in this one, is that Auburn has to be able to run the plays. And how many times there were 4 different times Auburn fumbled the ball. A couple times they got it back. The turnovers are going to be a big key in this game. I just said it. Georgia, they turned the ball over twice again in the first half against Kent State and Missouri. That's the key. If Auburn wants to win, the path for Auburn to keep it close and potentially pull a just shocking upset. Georgia's an unprecedented, I believe it was 27-point favorite against Auburn. Let's pull it up for everybody. 28-point favorite. That's unprecedented for this rivalry, this matchup. That goes to show you, I think it's a push-pull of how good we think Georgia is and how bad we think Auburn is. And I think it's also worth noting, I think a fair assessment has been this whole week has been, Georgia's played a couple bad games. I don't think they're going to play a third straight off game against Auburn, a team that we all know Kirby Smart doesn't like. And a team Georgia, like, it's a helmet game. Like, you see that helmet, doesn't matter how good or bad they are. Same thing when Auburn plays Alabama. Alabama could have lost every game this season. It doesn't matter. Like, you still treat it with the same intensity because it's that big of a matchup. But the ground game is going to be key. Can Auburn stop Georgia's run? If Auburn can, I do think Georgia could pass the ball. Like, it's not going to be a dare Stetson Bennett to throw kind of game because I think he is very capable of doing that. I think he deserves the love he's gotten. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily very fair to be like, well, he's not an NFL talent, so we're not going to, like, say he's that good of a quarterback. Like, you can be a great college quarterback and just simply not be an NFL quarterback. Like, Tim Tebow wasn't really an NFL quarterback, a fantastic college quarterback. Nick Marshall, a fantastic college quarterback. Went and played, like, cornerback in the NFL for a second. Now I think he's in Canada. So, it's just one of those things where it's like, you got to give credit where credit's due. He won a national championship, like, good college quarterback. And I think he could have a big game today. The key, if Auburn's got to eliminate the run game, for Auburn to win, Auburn's gonna have to run the ball. Like, there's just, like, that's, like, such, like, basic analysis. Like, yeah, any team that wants to win has to run the ball, but Auburn really hasn't been able to do that yet for whatever reason. Tank Bigsby continues to get hit behind the line of scrimmage or at the line. Like, Auburn has to work so hard to even gain 1 yard on a play. And the offensive line actually had their best game of the season last weekend against LSU. Brandon Council moving over to center. They felt like they had more depth on the guard position. But at the end of the day, like, Robbie Ashford's got to have some time. You can't be, running backwards or to the sides constantly. Which I think is one of those things where if you're going to just embrace the fact that our offensive line is not very good, Robbie does make sense at quarterback if you're picking between him and TJ, and I know TJ's been hurt, blah, blah, blah. At least Robbie can run around and maybe make something out of nothing. Like, if we're going to go ahead and start with such a disadvantage at that position just because they're running around constantly, you might as well have somebody that can run it a little bit. And Robbie was able to throw the ball. Now, of course, there were the interceptions. That second touchdown pass was an overthrow and a spectacular catch. Another thing we forgot to point out, just talking about throwing and wide receivers stuff, Landon King, I believe it's been reported. I don't know who said it. It might have been Rivals. Sorry if whatever. He will be redshirting the rest of the season. I believe he asked for a red shirt. He's only played in 4 games or less than 4 games, so he's safe for all the redshirt stuff. But it's another tough loss for Auburn. I believe he only had that. He had a big catch against Penn State, and that was really it for Landon King. So you hate that for him. It looks like we could see a lot more Camden Brown out there in the coming weeks. Of course, a darling of fall camp. Let's see if he can become a darling of the offense. That would be kind of fun. Running the ball, stopping the run. It's going to be that simple, I feel like. And it's so much easier said than done. I mean, like, that is going to be difficult. And how many times has a good Auburn team in recent years with a good offense, that Nate Marshall 2014 offense, just couldn't do anything in Athens. There's just been a number of offenses where it's like nothing has happened in Athens. It's been a struggle bus. So that's going to be something interesting to watch for. It's one of those things where it's like, here's how Auburn wins. They don't turn the ball over. They're able to run the ball, and, like, they force a Georgia turnover or 2. Well, the defense has forced 1 turnover the whole season. I'm not going to count that Missouri fumble in the back of the end zone. They really didn't have anything to do with the defense. Derek Hall had 1 interception, so that's 1. So something the team hasn't done. Running the ball. We really haven't been able to establish a run all season long against anybody, and we've had a humongous turnover problem. We've had 4, 2 times already this season. That would be 2, 2, 4, 4. That's 12. Didn't have 1 against Missouri. 12 turnover. All of these things, it's like, this is how Auburn wins. So basically just, stop doing all the bad things you've been doing and you might win. Okay, well, that's not really, how feasible is that? It's nothing, just shocking. I'm not saying Robbie Ashford has to run for 200 yards, but it's just a whole bunch of things where it's like, Auburn has struggled with that all season long. What makes you think it's going to get better against the defending national champions and a place you have not won since 2005? I was, 2? So, actually, very concerning. But Georgia's defense looks to be really good. Shout out to Brandon Council. I don't want to go the whole show without shouting out brother Brandon. He said something to the effect of, I don't know how well Georgia's coaches, they really mix and match their defensive line. They really trust. I don't know if they really trust them that much. We should be able to demolish them and run the ball. Love the heart of the competitor. Love the slander. That's the energy. Like, and everyone was like, how stupid is he? Like, they're the worst offensive line. They're like literally one of the 10 worst in the country. Okay, yes. And it was kind of a ridiculous statement. But at the same time, do you want someone going out there being like, yeah, we're going to get our ass kicked? Like, oh, well. No, I mean, heart of the competitor, you want someone to be like, yeah, we're going to go win. Like, cash me outside. So, I'm not going to hate on him too much. I don't know. I know Nick Saban's a big bulletin board material kind of thing. You'd have the whole team watching that. I'm sure Kirby does too, being a Nick Saban guy. But also, it's like, I don't know if that's going to really matter. But shout out to the Auburn faithful that went to Athens this weekend. Godspeed to you all. The rest of my family went. I'll be here. I'll be working an Auburn, Georgia volleyball game. So don't know how much of this game I'll actually watch. Think that might be in my best interest, just happiness-wise. But we'll see. I'll let you know. Maybe Auburn can do the unthinkable and win in Athens. What a shocking thought. But this one should be, well, I keep saying this one should be a lot of fun, and I'm just like, maybe it won't be. But it would be really cool if it was. It's one of those things where the schedule only gets harder for Auburn, and this is the beginning. We play at Athens. Next weekend we'll be in Oxford. Then we have the bye week. I'm feeling good about the bye week. I think we might win that one. Then we have, I believe it's either A&M or Arkansas. There's a 3-game stretch where it's A&M or Arkansas, at Mississippi State, the other A&M or Arkansas, and then Western Kentucky, Alabama. That's the 5 left after this one. Is that right? This would be game 6. 7, almost, yes. 5 after the bye week. So it should be, I mean, it's going to be good teams we're playing, and at some point it's like, you got to beat somebody good. Who that is, I simply don't know. But it would be fun to win another game. But it's just like, it's been very concerning. And on that note, basketball season. Hey. Our first regular season game was a month from yesterday. So get excited. I'll just shameless little plug really quick. The Patrick Party will be doing college basketball season. So everyone get excited. I'm excited. And I think this should be a really fun basketball season. So we're going to start talking about it more and more. The more the football team goes down and we get closer. So with that, Fabulous Bingham's Bets, everybody. Everyone's favorite segment. I'm just going to go ahead and say I don't know if I've had any. I've only had one time that I can recall, and I don't believe it was from a Patrick Party video. Someone texted me, and they actually took my betting advice. And they won some money, so I felt pretty good about it. It was for the bowl season last year. I think I got the Mayonnaise Bowl right, so that's worth something, right? Priceless. Actually, the guy might have made $100. I don't know if anybody's ever taken my Fabulous Bingham's Bets opinions. I should honestly go fact check them and see if it's like worth taking. Like, did I lose? Would I have lost you money or not? Who knows? We start with the game in Tiger Stadium. Number 8 Tennessee, number 25 LSU. I think, you could pick LSU in this one. Tennessee is a 2.5-point favorite. I mean, I don't want to reveal my pick, but you could go either way on that one. That's a tough one to pick. Let's just look. Mississippi State, a 9-point favorite to Arkansas. I could see it. TCU is a 7.5-point favorite at home against Kansas. I mean, I'm not going to reveal my pick, but I might take Kansas on that line. Texas is an 8.5-point favorite against Oklahoma. Not going to lie, I haven't watched a lot of Oklahoma. I believe I picked them. Sorry, spoiler. But 8.5 points. These games are normally pretty close. I might take Oklahoma in that one. Not necessarily outright, but just that could be close. Georgia, an unprecedented. We mentioned it a couple times. 28-point favorite in Athens. Oh, well, okay. I don't want to spoil my pick, but it would contradict myself if I said what I was thinking with this line. I don't see Georgia winning by like a touchdown. If Georgia wins, I don't think it's particularly close. Obviously, if Auburn wins, it's just shocking. But 28 points for a line in a big rivalry game like this, that just really shows you where things are at for everybody. Wisconsin, a 10-point favorite at home on the road at Northwestern. Of course, Wisconsin fired Paul Chryst. Kind of a shocking move. We haven't really mentioned it. They play at Northwestern, who's 1-4. Wisconsin's still a 10-point favorite. That will be a fascinating line to watch. Ohio State, a 27-point favorite on the road in East Lansing against Michigan State and the Spartans. I might take Michigan State on that one. That one just to be a little bit closer. I don't think Ohio State will necessarily. I mean, Ohio State could win by 25 and look fine. Ole Miss, number 9, takes on Vanderbilt on the road in Nashville. Ole Miss only 17-point favorite. I would take Ole Miss in that one. I think they could beat them pretty bad. Any other exciting ones? Notre Dame is a 4-point favorite at home in South Bend against number 16 BYU. I might take Notre Dame in that one. I think Notre Dame will win that game. Alabama, 24-point favorite at home against A&M. I'll take A&M simply because Bryce Young's not playing. I still think the Tide get it done. Sorry, spoiled that pick too. And I believe that is about it for our fabulous Bingham's bets. Shout out to Lauren for the logo. Alrighty, with that one, it looks like that's going to about close us out here on Patrick Party Pregame. So thank you all for joining us this Saturday morning as we've gotten ready and really enjoyed this Auburn football Georgia rivalry. Hopefully it's a fun game in Athens today. Shout out to all my friends that go to the University of Georgia. I grew up in Atlanta for a little bit. So shout out to, let's see, who goes there? Kate Turner goes there, Mason Stockton, Catherine Stockton, my Camp Mac friend Mason Victory. Those are all good friends. Oh, Abby from Camp Mac goes to Georgia. So a number of people go to Georgia. Shout out to y'all. Why you went there, I don't know. So nobody said they had good judgment. I guess they're pretty smart. I think that's a pretty hard school to get into. So shout out to my Georgia friends. Hopefully we're still friends after the game. Best of luck to all my Auburn friends that are in family that are up there, probably getting barked at 8:49 in the morning. So with that, this has been Patrick Party Pregame. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week to, do the whole thing again. But hopefully you've enjoyed our show. This has been the Patrick Party. Enjoy your college football weekend. Here's our Patrick Party picks from Byron Smokehouse. Hey everybody, welcome into the Patrick Party. Let's make some quick picks here from Byron's. First up, you have LSU, Tennessee, in Tiger Stadium. It should be a fun one. A top 25 matchup. LSU back to 25. Tennessee all the way up to 8. I like the Volunteers in Baton Rouge. I think that should be a lot of fun. Next up, in the Texas State Fair, you have Texas, Oklahoma. The Red River Showdown, I believe, is what we're supposed to call it now. This should be a fun one. I'm going to go with Oklahoma. They've had 2 straight losses. I think they'll have a bounce-back win to kind of get the Brett Venables thing going once again. Then next up you have Mississippi State, Arkansas. This should be another fun one. Mississippi State, I think, might be the second best team in the SEC West. I like the Bulldogs in that one. Then you have Kansas, TCU, 2 ranked teams at 17-19 matchup. This should be a lot of fun. Shout out to Kansas. They're having a great season. I'm going to go ahead and just pick the Jayhawks. They've been the trendy team all season long. I like them in that one. Then you have Alabama, Texas A&M. This should be a fun game. Bryce Young, it's looking like he's not going to play, so that could make this interesting. I still like the Tide pretty big in that one. Then Auburn, Georgia, for the 127th time in the Deep South's oldest rivalry. Auburn has not won in Athens since 2005, and I have never, in my 6 years of doing the Patrick Party, not picked Auburn. And I've been back and forth, but I've read some things the last couple of days. I'll go ahead and pick the Tigers in this one. Maybe Brian Harsin can pull up a fun little upset special here on this Saturday morning. That's it from the Patrick Party. Enjoy your college football weekend.